Stop. Before you complain about your job one more time, I need you to watch this. 5 real jobs from history. So disgusting, so humiliating, so horrifying, that after you hear number 1, you will never, not once, complain about a Monday morning again. Welcome to History Autopsy. Today, we cut open the darkest, most revolting chapter of human employment. And I promise you this, by the time we reach number 1, you will question whether humans ever had dignity at all. Let's begin the autopsy. Today, when you get sick, a doctor runs a blood test, a scanner, a clean, sterile diagnosis in minutes. But in medieval Europe, medicine worked very differently. For thousands of years, physicians believed in one sacred science: uroscopy. The art of diagnosing every illness in the human body purely through urine. And this was not just holding a jar up to the light. Imagine a wealthy nobleman falls gravely ill. He hands you his fresh, warm harvest. You are the doctor. First, you study the color. Medieval physicians had detailed charts with 20 different shades of urine. Green meant your liver was failing. Black? It was time to start writing your will. But the color was only the beginning. A true uroscopist had to smell it, swirl it, and then, yes, you heard correctly, taste it. They took a real sip, rolled it slowly across their tongue, and analyzed the flavor like a professional wine sommelier. And here is the terrifying part. It actually worked. If the taste was sweet, these doctors became the very first humans in history to accurately diagnose diabetes. If it was sharp, bitter, or acidic, they knew a lethal infection was destroying the body from within. These were highly educated men. They spent years studying at universities, reading heavy medical manuscripts by candlelight, only to spend their careers drinking the urine of kings and noblemen. And in exchange, they were paid heavily in gold. The most disgusting diagnostic tool in medical history, and the most accurate one of its time. Next time you sit down with your morning coffee, just remember what the medieval elite were sipping. If tasting someone else's urine made you shiver, I have a job for you that requires absolutely zero physical labor. You just have to sit and eat. There is only one minor condition. In exchange for that meal, you must sell your own soul to hell. From the 17th to the 19th century, in the cold, fog-covered villages of England and Scotland, there existed one of the most psychologically horrifying professions in all of human history. They were called the sin eaters. When someone died, the grieving family would search for the local sin eater, always the most desperate, most broken outcast in the village. The room is pitch black. The body is cold and still on the bed. The family would place a piece of stale bread and a bowl of warm, flat ale directly onto the chest, sometimes directly onto the face of the dead. They believed with absolute conviction that every sin committed by the deceased, every lie, every betrayal, every act of violence across an entire lifetime would seep directly into that bread and that beer. Your job was to eat it, every last crumb. Drink every last drop of that ale, sitting inches from the pale, lifeless body. And as you swallowed, all of those sins transferred from the dead soul into yours. The deceased entered heaven, clean and forgiven. But you carried every dark deed they had ever done for eternity. For this act, you were paid mere pennies. But the money was never the worst part. The true tragedy was what happened after. Society didn't just dislike sin eaters. They were terrified of them. People refused to touch them, refused to look them in the eyes, refused to let their shadow fall across their doorstep. Sin eaters were forced to live like stray animals, completely alone, deep in the woods, cut off from every human connection. They gave their souls to save a stranger and received nothing but isolation and damnation in return. The last confirmed sin eater in recorded history died in 1906, alone in a ditch, with no one left to eat his sins. Let's leave the dark villages behind and step onto the open ocean. The 18th century, the age of brutal naval warfare. What are 10-year-old boys doing right now? Playing video games, doing homework, sleeping in a warm bed. 300 years ago, if you were born poor, or worse, an orphan, your childhood looked nothing like that. During the golden age of naval warfare, massive warships had one very specific position that could only be filled by children. They were called powder monkeys. Why monkeys? Because the job required small, fast, agile bodies that could squeeze through the tight, suffocating passages deep inside a warship. Children between 10 and 14 years old, sometimes as young as 7. Many of them weren't hired. They were kidnapped directly off the streets and locked below deck before they even understood what was happening. When battle began, the powder monkey's job was to sprint down to the lowest, darkest magazine of the ship, grab heavy bags of raw gunpowder, and carry them at full speed back up to the cannons on the main deck. Now, put yourself there. You are 10 years old. Explosions are shaking the entire ship around you. Enemy cannonballs are tearing through the wooden walls. There is blood on the floor, screaming, severed limbs, massive splinters of wood flying through the air like spears. And you are running through all of it, holding the most explosive substance on the entire ship in your bare hands. One spark, just one tiny spark touching that powder, and you would simply cease to exist. And the coldest, most heartbreaking fact of all, while every adult sailor on that ship had a name on the military roster, the powder monkeys did not. They were not listed. They were not counted. If a powder monkey was blown apart in battle, no letter was sent to his family. No ceremony was held. No one mourned. They simply grabbed another orphan at the next port to take his place. Before you say you had a difficult childhood, imagine theirs. Let's leave the oceans and climb high into the mountains. The 1500s, South America. The vast, secretive Incan Empire. Today, a message travels to the other side of the planet in under a second, one tap on a screen. The Incas had none of that. No horses, no wheel, and, most critically, no written language. None. Not a single letter, not a single symbol to carry a message. Yet this empire stretched across thousands of miles of some of the most brutal terrain on Earth, and it needed to communicate. Military orders, troop movements, enemy attacks, warnings, all of it, across mountains, across jungle, across altitudes so extreme that breathing itself becomes a fight. So they built the only system they could, one powered entirely by human memory and human legs. These men were called the Chasquis. Imagine you are one of them. You are standing barefoot on a freezing mountain path, 10,000 feet above sea level. The air is so thin that each breath delivers barely half the oxygen your lungs need. Your feet are cut and bleeding from the rocky ground. And locked inside your mind is the Emperor's exact command: top secret, critical. You must have memorized it perfectly. Every word, every pause, every exact intonation. One mispronounced syllable could send an entire army in the wrong direction. Cities could fall. Thousands could die. You begin to run. Not a jog, a full sprint. Across cliffs, through freezing rain, through mountain passes where one wrong step means falling to your death. Your only goal is to reach the next relay station, 5 miles away, and deliver the message flawlessly, even as your lungs are burning and your legs are giving out beneath you. If a chasqui collapsed and died on the mountain path, or arrived at the station and stumbled over a single word, the punishment was death. No exceptions. No mercy. Human memory. Human legs. Human lungs. The only technology an entire empire had. And somehow, it worked. And now we arrive at number 1. I warned you at the beginning that this one would make you question human dignity entirely. I was not exaggerating. We all know that the extremely wealthy have always done strange, unsettling things with their money. But in 18th century England, the aristocratic elite developed a hobby so dehumanizing, so breathtakingly arrogant, that it stands alone in the archive of human cruelty. They began purchasing living human beings to use as garden decorations. At the time, building enormous, dramatic landscape gardens was the ultimate status symbol among the English elite. Artificial lakes, ancient-looking ruins, carefully placed trees, dark, mossy caves carved into the hillside. But for some of the wealthiest aristocrats, plants and stones were no longer enough. The garden needed something more: a wild spirit, a living, breathing element of mystery. And so they had an idea. They would hire a human being to live in the cave. Contracts were drawn up, real, legal documents. One of the most famous contracts read as follows: "You will live in this cave for 7 full years. You will not cut your hair. You will not cut your beard. You will not cut your nails. You will not wash your body. You may only leave the cave after dark. You are forbidden from speaking to any guest who walks through the garden. You are forbidden from making eye contact with anyone. If you complete all 7 years, you will receive the equivalent of $100,000. Desperate men, broken by poverty, by debt, by lives that had already fallen apart, signed these contracts. And so they lived, in filth, in a cold, damp cave, eating scraps, growing wild and unrecognizable over the years, slowly in the darkness, forgetting what it felt like to be human. And on warm summer evenings, the aristocrats would invite their wealthy friends for tea on the lawn. They would walk the garden path, pointing proudly toward the cave. "Look," they would say to their guests, "I have my very own wild man." The guests would laugh. They would peer into the darkness, catching a glimpse of the filthy, hollow-eyed creature inside. Then they would return to their tea, their fine china, and their perfectly trimmed hedges, deeply entertained. How many of those men lost their minds entirely after 7 years in that darkness? How many emerged from those caves no longer knowing who they were? We will never know, because nobody thought to ask. To the aristocrats, they were simply a feature of the garden, no different from an interesting rock formation or a decorative statue. The most complete erasure of human dignity ever sold for a price. History is not just dates and battles and names in a textbook. History is blood. It is humiliation. It is 10-year-old boys carrying explosives through cannon fire. It is men drinking urine for gold. It is the desperate poor selling their souls and their humanity just to survive another winter. So the next time you sit in your climate-controlled office staring at your screen thinking, "I cannot do this anymore," ask yourself one honest question. Is this harder than sprinting across a freezing Incan mountain with an emperor's secret burning in your mind, knowing one forgotten word means death? Is this harder than a 7-year-old orphan running through blood and fire on a sinking warship? Is this harder than living in a cave for 7 years while wealthy strangers point at you and laugh? We are living in a level of comfort that no human being across almost all of history ever experienced. And the archives are always open, always ready to remind us exactly how lucky we are. This was History Autopsy. Now go back to your Monday morning and smile. History is always watching.